All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Greg Liar podcast. We're here today to talk to new donor seed partner, Dr. Trish. Dr. Trish is in Tanzania. The country is shutting down. People are leaving, but Dr. Trish is staying behind. So I know a lot about you because I've done a lot of research, and our team has spent a lot of time with you. But I want to hear from you. What is it that you do in Tanzania, and why is it that you are there serving the people that you are?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak. I really appreciate it. I am an Irish pediatric oncologist, but I've been in Tanzania now. This is my 13th year, and I help run the National Children's Cancer Service here. I'm based in Dar es Salaam, and I work in the largest government hospital called Muhimbili National Hospital, but I also have set up a children's cancer charity to support all the work. Myself and some like-minded people set this up in 2011. So we've been running Tumaini La Maisha and the sister charities called Their Lives Matter for, well, what's that, 8 years, 9 years.
Awesome. Now, a lot of our audience might only be familiar with like a U.S. hospital. They might not have traveled abroad. So would you mind explaining the conditions of the hospital? You're in the city of Dar es Salaam, is that right?
Yes.
So in Dar es Salaam, this is the biggest hospital there. What are the conditions like in that hospital?
So Dar es Salaam is a big, busy university hospital, and it's not that dissimilar really to hospitals that you would see in Europe or North America. We have lots of very high-tech services that have developed over the last 10 years. For example, we've just built and handed over to the hospital a pediatric intensive care unit. There's renal dialysis, there's open heart surgery. So this is not a bush hospital. However, most of the patients that we serve are incredibly poor. And that's kind of the joy of working in this hospital, is that Muhimbili really does serve the poor and tries as best as it can to provide as much free care as possible. And that was partly why we set up the charity, because we basically partner with the hospital and the government to provide all children's cancer services free of charge to all the children. Now, it's busier than an oncology ward is somewhere else, because we used to be the only children's cancer service in the country. We have 65 inpatient beds, and we are never full. So what I mean by that is, if we need to, they move up in the bed. So we have on occasion had 110 children in the 65 beds. So it's
So are they doubling up?
Tight.
Are they
Sometimes,
doubling up per bed? Okay.
Sometimes, yeah. Now, at the moment, they're not, because a call out has gone out to countries all over the world for non-essential patients to stay at home. Now, we are not non-essential, but unfortunately, I think that's impacting the initial presentation for some of our children. So we have a few empty beds at the moment, which is very unusual and very worrying, to be honest, because it means they're out there in the community getting kind of caught up in all of this COVID fever kind of chaos, I would say.
Yeah. So what are some of the challenges that you are facing at this particular hospital?
So what we have done with the charity is we're the charity of the gaps. So Muhimbili provides what it does free of charge, and that's amazing. They provide there's no admission fee, and things like blood tests, blood products, even CT and MRI and surgery is free. But we as a charity have it's really impressive. We as a charity have provided all the other things. So we provide chemotherapy, all the high-tech support drugs like the antibiotics and things for bone marrow, all of those kind of things. We also have a really active social program. So we have play and art and music. We have a hostel. We have transport to and from the hospital for the families. We make over 100 liters of smoothie every day for the children to try and help their nutrition. Yeah. So we do lots of really cool things. But in this moment, because of COVID, what we've realized is resources are scarce. They're always scarce, which is why we step in if we need an extra doctor or a couple of extra nurses. We always try and step in those cases. But right now, what we've realized is this country very quickly could be overwhelmed by this virus if it takes off like it has done in North America and in Europe. Maybe it won't, but I'm not banking on that. And so what we've realized is let's say best case scenario, it doesn't hit Tanzania very hard. For whatever reason, the population is very young. This business of does the heat affect it? I don't know. It's still going to affect us terribly because we get all our resources from overseas. We get all of our consumables and drugs from India. And so what we realized was, as the world is shutting down, and it's a big but, even if we are not affected too badly by the virus, we're going to be affected by the lack of resources. And so that's why we reached out to you, and thank you so much for taking our call and our plea. That we need to stockpile everything, and not just the chemo and the antibiotics that we normally provide, and like leave the rest of the hospital. We've realized the hospital is going to be overwhelmed by needs. And so what we've tried to do is reduce the pressure on the hospital, and therefore basically provide everything that the ward requires at this time until we're sure that, you know, things are back to normal. So we've sort of tried to make sure there's enough of everything for the next 4 months. And that includes, we've sort of broken it down into 5 or 6 different things. So one is the things we normally provide, which is the chemo and antibiotics, but to get a store in for the next 4 months at least. Yeah. Then there's the consumables. Like, there's no point in having antibiotics or chemo if you don't have a cannula. You know, how are you supposed to inject the drug into the child if you've no syringe? So it's those very simple things that we use, like many of every day, that we don't even think about because they normally come from the hospital. Then there's obviously the PPE, you know, the protective equipment that we need for the staff, because that's another big worry for us. Is no child has died of this virus under 10 so far in the world. That might be different for our cohort of kids who are immunocompromised and malnourished. So we don't know. But what we would be worried about is our staff getting this virus. And, you know, we don't have a deep pool of staff. So if many of them get sick, you know, even if it's just home, you know, and recovering rather than getting very, very sick, that we would struggle to replace them. And so, you know, the protective equipment, you know, soap and hand sanitizer, and even getting them off the Dala buses. You know, I don't know if you saw the video of basically these massive numbers of people in these teeny tiny spaces. If the virus is there, every one of those people will get them. So it's kind of a combination of the routine stuff, trying to keep that going so that we can, because the children are going to come with their cancer. This virus doesn't stop cancer. So we have to maintain the routine life-saving service, but we also have to make sure we have enough so we're not overburdening the hospital and protect our staff. So we're kind of balancing all of that.
So I think it's very clear to anyone who's watching or listening to this that you and your hospital are in a somewhat precarious or vulnerable situation. It wouldn't take much to just make things a lot more difficult for you and your patients. So if someone who's watching this, they say, I hear what you're saying and I really want to get involved, what would you tell them is like the most high impact thing that they could provide for you? Is it syringes? Is it the protective stuff? If there is one thing that you could kind of isolate as saying, this is going to make the biggest difference in this new season that we've got coming up for us, what would be kind of that one big thing?
Well, I mean, it sort of changes day by day as we get, you know, people donating things to us. I mean, one of the things what we've managed to do, because we've been working on this now, the penny dropped for me over 3 weeks ago, and I've been trying to kind of to collect what we need. And I've always had the policy of ordering things, whether there's money in the account or not. And so we have ordered everything we need for the next few months. What we don't have is we don't have the funds to cover everything.
I got you, yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, to be honest, if people want to get in touch because they have a particular thing that is on our needs list, and we have created needs lists, that's great. We can cancel certain orders. If people are willing to donate even a small amount of money, that's actually very helpful. Sharing on various networks to kind of find other people who might be willing to help, that's also hugely helpful. So it's about just getting the word out, and either supplies or funds to generate those supplies. And the reason we've had to order them up front is every day they get more expensive, because that's what the business world sometimes does. You know, it takes advantage of a situation where there's a lack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, DonorSee, we as much as possible, we try and just put the funds into your hands, and then you'll be responsible for the finding where sourcing them. So it's very rare when we actually have, send a big crate of supplies somewhere. That's just it ends up being more expensive than
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
just giving you the funds that you need, and the
yeah.
best places and the best vendors and all that stuff. So
Yeah,
we try and just
and
do
don't get me
funding.
wrong, we've had lots of help from the business community. Like there's some fantastic people who, like, as I say, I think just last week we got enough hand sanitizer to
That's
support
excellent.
us through the next few months. So
Mm-hmm.
people are answering the call. It's just, I guess we've kind of been overwhelmed by the need all of a sudden, rather
Mm-hmm.
than, usually it's like, oh, this child needs something unusual and we have to provide something extra for this. But now the whole service needs all these extra
Yeah.
things all of a sudden. And
Mm-hmm.
then the need will go down once we have them, because, we're basically stockpiling for 3-4 months.
That's.
And then hopefully we'll be through this
Mm-hmm.
awfulness.
Just in case there's we do have some very generous donors out there. Just if there was an amount of money, if you could just get a one-time donation that would take care of all of your needs for the next 3 or 4 months, approximately how much would that be? You've got all these patients coming in, you're worried about people coming in and out. If someone could give you one donation for a certain amount of money, what would that be?
Also, I hate saying high numbers because I don't want to frighten people, but about
Yeah,
100 grand. We're short about
yeah,
100 grand.
yeah.
And
Well,
don't
that's
worry,
not a high number, because if you were to ask that same question to a hospital in America, they would be talking in the millions or tens of millions. You need $100,000 to fund your entire staff in the middle of a global pandemic with a country that is resource scarce. So I
yes,
don't think that should scare away anyone. If anything, people should say, hey, I've got $10 and I'm going to chip in for that $100,000, because that's going to make such a huge impact in
yes.
people's lives. So that's how people should interpret it.
No, that's great. And I guess I should probably say, like, we looked at how much this was in the calm times where there was no virus.
Yeah.
We looked at treating children, and last year we treated 720 kids. And the amount of money we spent on treating children, there was a recent study published in where they looked at leukemia treatment in Europe, in all the hospitals across Europe, and where the cheapest leukemia treatment was. And the cheapest place to get your leukemia treatment is in Finland, if you want to know. And our service cost, for 720 children, cost the equivalent of 4 children in Finland.
Yeah, that's incredible, and that's exactly what people need to know about. So yeah, at DonorSee, we are so thrilled to partner with you. I understand that you might want to give us a quick tour of the hospital, just to kind of show us your operation. I think people would be very interested in that if you're open to it.
Okay, sure. I can detach here, and I can take you around a little bit. I guess the other thing to say is everything that we do for the children is given completely free of charge. So no child, no parent pays for any aspect of their care, whether that's the treatment, the fun things we do, the transport, or the food.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm just walking out of the charity office, and directly. Oh, hang on, I have to go back and get the mask.
No worries. Yeah,
everybody's wearing
please.
masks around here now. And just the thing to point out is that our charity is directly on the children's cancer ward. So we're completely embedded in the national service. We built this ward with the Rotary clubs here in Dar es Salaam. And so this is something that it's the thing that I really like about what we do is when you come onto the ward and you see staff, it's impossible to know whether they're Muimbili hospital staff or TLM, Tumaini Maisha charity staff, because it's blended. If they needed extra doctors or nurses, we provide them. And so we all work together. We all, have conferences together, eat together.
It's so amazing.
All of that. So,
yeah.
So this is, I don't know if you can see, but this is the children's cancer ward. As you can see, we have, you can't come in, and there's a little virus sign there.
That's good, yeah.
Keep people safe. So we have isolation rooms. They're not quite isolation rooms to the European or North American standard, but at least we can keep 2 children isolated if they need to be.
Yeah.
At some level. This is our sick ward here. I don't know if you can see it. Basically, the children start here, and this is opposite the nurses' bay here. These are some of our lovely nurses. And they're all hard at work. DeFrose is one of our chief nurses. And so basically, yeah, so this, when I started here in Tanzania 12 and a half years ago, we had a shed, literally a shed. We had 17 beds squashed into a space that was about a quarter the size of this space. And now we have this lovely open ward. We have piped oxygen on the walls. You know, we can do much more high tech stuff in terms of pumps and, you know, infusions and things like that. We have access to a lot more services, as I said before. One of the rooms I just want to quickly show you is we have a procedure room, which has also helped enormously. So let me just make sure there's nobody in here. Yeah. So basically, we used to do all of our procedures at the end of a child's bed, which was just awful, just with curtains around it. And now we have this lovely safe room. We have, again, piped oxygen so that we can monitor the children and give them oxygen if they need it. We can make the slides and things ourselves. So we can actually speed up the diagnostics ourselves because we do the procedures ourselves and make the slides and look at the slides ourselves. So all that really helps. And then if I can run down to the other side of the ward, because we have two sides, we also have, the other thing we did was we try and take away hidden costs to the families. Sorry, I just washed my hands here. And that includes things like that you don't think of, like, for example, water. So you can't, in most places, you can't drink the tap water here. And so people have to buy bottled water, which is an enormous expense when you think about, you know, these are poor people. And so what TLM did about a year ago was we put in a water plant into this building. So every tap in this whole building, this is all pediatrics, Mambo. This is all pediatrics, and not just this floor is oncology, but the rest of the building is all pediatrics. Every tap you can drink the water from. So that's kind of cool as well.
That's great.
Let me see if they'll let me into this room. Hori, habari. So this is our high-tech room. This is our pharmacy for chemotherapy, and we have lots of kit. Sorry, we have lots of kit, and we have a specialized room in here, which I'm not sure. Is there anybody in here at the moment? See if they'll open the windows. So basically, he's going to open the window for us. In here, we have, this is where all of the chemotherapy is made up. It's obviously finished for the day today. So basically it's a clean room. You, like, when they're actually doing the work, you have to gown up, and they kind of, you know, you're not allowed in there if you're not a pharmacist and things like that. So we have a very sort of safe, secure system here for Asante, for making up the chemotherapy. And as you can see, it's right on the ward, so there's no delay. There's no delay with an order going to pharmacy and then coming to the child. It all happens, you know, we do the ward round, we write the chemo, they make up the chemo, and it's all done in the one day. So that's all very helpful.
Well, I think the work that you're doing is really wonderful. And I just want to say, you know, when a parent finds out the awful news that their child has cancer, the last thing that they want to do is worry about expenses or finances or anything like that. I mean, it's just the worst thing that could possibly happen to someone. And the work that you're doing is you're being there for the most needy people on the most vulnerable time in their life. And so we are here to support you as much as possible. We thank you for your service. And if there's anything that we can do, just let us know, because we're here for you.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, because as I always say, we can do nothing without support. And like every time we make new friends and they're helping us with this, they're part of this family. You know, like people sometimes say to me, like, what my role is in kind of Tumal Maisha in the national program. And I always talk about basically, sorry, I'm just going to clean my hands again. We're all into washing our hands a million times.
That's good, yeah. Set the example.
And basically, I describe the service as the pearl, right? And all of the things and the staff and everything are the oyster around the pearl and the shell. And then in order to make that pearl, though, you need an annoying piece of sand, annoying grain of sand. So that's what I am. I'm an annoying grain of sand.
Yeah. Well, I don't find you annoying in the least. I think that what you're doing is so just completely inspiring. And I would say you're an inspiring person. I've told several people, Dr. Trish is a hero, and you need to know about the work that she's doing. So, like, seriously, a hero. the fact that you're staying behind and you're helping these kids who would not have help otherwise. You're there for people who would not have anything else. So thank you very much.
I'm really not, but it's a joy to do this job. It's really a joy. I've always said, if I'm having a bad day, it's because I haven't spent enough time on the ward with the children. No matter what they're going through, they are so uplifting and joyful and fabulous. And they just, there's no better reason to do something.
Yeah. Well, there's a million things I would love to talk to you about, but I want you to do your work. So I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to get this out to as many people as possible. And I really hope that you're able to.
Oh, I just dropped the earphone.
No worries.
Cool.
Thank you so
much. Yeah. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just really hope that as many people get to see this and they share it and they tell people about Dr. Trish and the work that she's doing in Tanzania. And as things kind of progress over the next several months, you will have an updated feed on DonorSee showing like your most pressing needs at that moment. So anyone who wants to help, we'll put the link for all that stuff in the description of this video.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks a million.
Thank you.